Stewardship Committee meeting that I'm calling to order. I'm going to do the roll call. Freddie Gillespie.
I'm here.
Kat McKee.
Here.
Brett Peters.
Here.
And the chair, Joyce Greenleaf, is also present. So we're starting the meeting at 6:32 p.m. And I'll ask if there's a volunteer to take minutes for tonight. Otherwise, I will do it.
Recording in progress. I can help.
Okay, so between the two of us, Kat, we can probably get that done. So the first item on our agenda is introductions, and welcome to Brett Peters, our newly appointed steward. So pleased to have you join our committee. I already introduced myself as the chair. I've been the chair for a while, and I've been on the committee since its inception, which I wish I could remember the exact year of. I'm sure I have it in my records, but I don't remember. And I know you, I think you already know Freddie.
Yep.
And Kat McKee is a member also. Kat, if you want to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Hi, yes. So I joined the committee in 2017, so it's been 5 years, and I also serve on the Trails Committee as chair. And there's a lot of synergies between the two, so I've really enjoyed being on both. And Stewardship does lovely work, and I'm really glad that you joined us, and I look forward to working with you.
Excellent.
Yeah. So Brett, I don't know if you'd like to share anything about yourself and your interest in stewardship. You don't have to, but if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick snippet. I've lived in town for 18, 19 years, somewhere around there. And we live near Breakneck Hill. I live right across the street from Freddie, so close enough. So my family's used that, me, my wife, my kids, my dog, we've all used that place a lot. So I'm excited to be kind of part of the group that helps, maintain it and improve it. So I'm excited to be here.
That's lovely. Thanks for sharing that. I also live near Freddie, so I'm down the street.
Are you on Southville?
I'm on North Street.
Okay.
So near the train station.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I guess we're Southsiders.
Yes. Yeah.
So I thought I could just spend just a couple of minutes giving a broad brush overview of some of how the committee works and what we aim to accomplish. And then, we're sort of aiming for a manageable short meeting tonight to hit some of our priority updates and our priority topics as reflected in the agenda. But so stewardship is goals are both about passive recreation and conservation of the Breakneck Hill Conservation Land and the town forest. So passive recreation is essentially providing usable trails and parking and things like that. And the management just encompasses an awful lot, from keeping an eye out on invasives and dealing with them, making sure there's mowing, promoting biodiversity. And then we do an awful lot of work with a professor of biology studying bees who helps us identify some species of plants to put in that are important for the conservation of some at-risk pollinators. So that's just some broad brush things. We have multiple pollinator gardens. We have been trying to establish a really robust grasslands for grassland nesting birds at Breakneck Hill, and promoting it as a place where people can enjoy birding and walking. And we just recently improved the parking lots there. So they're in really good shape. We have a new kiosk. We often get Eagle Scouts wanting to do projects. So lots of great opportunity to engage with the community on the array of those projects. But it's a big property and it has a number of challenges too. It used to have some cattle grazing there, and some of the fields have more recently come under our purview that need sort of different management approaches that we've been working toward implementing. And in terms of how the committee works, like any town committee, we're subject to open meeting law, and we post agendas a couple of days in advance that, you know, spells out how we'll use our time, and anyone in the public is welcome to listen in to our meetings, and when we're in person can come in person. And we have to pay heed to quorum and how we deliberate. So quorum means a majority of our members present. So we cannot deliberate, which means communicate and offer opinions and make decisions, when we don't have outside of sort of a publicly posted meeting where there is quorum. So those are things that the town will provide some materials and training on, and that's kind of the broad brush. So it means when we're exchanging emails, it's about when we're going to meet, like meeting times. It isn't about, what do you think of this project? So we can't deliberate via email because that is not available and open to the public for open meeting law. Also, if we happen to run into each other all in one public place because we're all at some Southborough event, that's not a publicly posted meeting. So we can, you know, we couldn't deliberate in those situations either. So just things to keep in mind too. And luckily Freddie has a long experience in town meetings and town committees, and it has some expertise there to help make sure that we're taking votes as appropriately and things like that. So it's just stuff that we pay attention to. And if you haven't gotten that information yet from the town, I'm sure you will soon. So those are things to know, and we try and meet about monthly, and we'll also schedule site visits. So we'll all meet at the site and walk the site together. And in those cases, when we're meeting for a site visit, I believe that we can deliberate. And I'm sure Freddie will correct me if I got that wrong. So, but anyway, that's just a broad brush. And if you have questions, we can try and answer them, or as time goes on, you'll get accustomed to how the town meetings work.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please do.
The law is you can have a site visit that is not a posted meeting with a quorum, but you can't deliberate. And if you have a quorum, you can't deliberate unless it's posted. So it's always best to post a meeting, even if it's a site visit. And then if you don't have a quorum, you don't discuss. And deliberating is, you can go and look and see, you know, oh, this tree is falling down. But you can't say, oh, and we're going to hire a contractor to do it, which gets into deliberation, right?
Yeah.
Because that's making a decision or opinions. Normally, when we do a site visit, we always try to have a quorum and post it. So, but you can, if something happens and you have to go out on a site visit, you can do it without posting.
Yeah, like we could have a tree down. It could be an emergency or something. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Our quorum is 4, by the way. So, yeah. So I don't know if you have any questions.
I'm probably going to need to be told here and there when I'm deliberating when I shouldn't, but it seems somewhat clear enough so far. So
yeah, Okay, great. So at this point, I'll just turn to our our second order of business in the agenda, which is the review of the draft minutes. So I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at them and if there's any corrections or edits that need to be made. So our minutes also get posted to the website, Brett.
Okay.
Once they're approved, and that's also part of kind of the open meeting law. Did anyone have any corrections or edits? Okay, I think I waited the 8-second rule of thumb to allow people to raise their hands with any corrections or edits. Does someone
I make a motion to accept the minutes. What was the date there? I don't have it in front of me.
May 26th.
For May 26, 2022.
I have a second.
Sure. Second.
Okay. All in favor? And because we're on Zoom, I'll do a roll call for the vote.
Can I jump in and let Brett
Yeah.
know that you can abstain, but even though because you weren't there, but you
Right.
don't have to. People
Okay.
get confused on that. Most people choose to abstain because they weren't there, but you don't actually have to.
Right. Okay.
So I'll do the roll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the minutes as submitted? Freddie?
Is that what we're saying now? I approve.
Kat? Oh, you're muted, Kat.
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
And I approve, so the motion passes. So I will make sure these get submitted to the town website. All right, the next order of business is the farm dump updated. So there is an area of the property that the Conservation Commission has been working on, that's a former farm dump, and it has some detritus and barrels and old farm equipment that needs to undergo some cleanup. And I recently heard from Melissa that there's going to be the digging of a number of test pits to see if there's any sort of, actually I'm not sure I really quite understand. I think it has to do with leaching of things into the ground.
Joyce, do you want me to do an update on this?
If you have a quick update.
Yeah, so on September 8th, I believe, I can double check that date.
That's the date I have, yeah.
Yep. Our surveying crew is going to be going out and just staking the 14 areas on that farm dump area. And for Brett, this is, if you go down Breakneck Hill Road, this is mostly behind Harding Botanicals and the property to the left at 60 Breakneck Hill. So this area was historically used by Mr. Davis, who was the farmer there previously, to discard a lot of his equipment. So there's a lot of metal, tires, roof shingles, things like that. So we have entered an administrative consent order with the state's DEP to get this cleaned up in the next 2 fiscal year process, because we go from July to June. So for this fiscal year, on September 18th, we're going to have the survey crew out and just stake those 14 locations. And then on September 12th through 14th, we're going to have the actual crew out there just conducting test pits and an asbestos survey. So that's kind of a small digger that digs down, in kind of a, maybe at most 5 by foot section, and digs down. And we're really just trying to understand the depth of how much material is there and what the composition of it is. So this will be able to help us identify the actual extent of the dump, or what we're calling the farm dump, only because a lot of it is, from years past. So it has an extreme amount of overgrowth, like full mature trees. So we really just don't know, how deep it goes. So that's really the basis of what this is going to be. And it will help our, we call them the licensed site professional, or LSP, to help make the actual cleanup plan that will happen in the next fiscal year. So after July 1st of 2023. And that's pretty much what's going to be happening. I did let the community gardens coordinator know as well, because they will be coming in from that parking lot side, and they will be entering the site from kind of the trail that heads off to the left. So I'm probably going to have some signage out there, to make sure that there are ample spots for gardeners, and just so people don't go wandering in there when it looks like there's a clear path.
Right.
Can
And that
I ask a
change.
question?
Oh, yes.
I apologize. So I'm taking notes, and I just wanted to understand, you said, is it September 18th they're going to stake out, or was it August 18th that they?
September 8th.
8th, thank you. And then 12th through the 14th, the crew's
Yeah.
going out. And it's the Mass DEP. And you said it needs to get cleaned up in 2 fiscal cycles. Is that?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So this is something that's really important for the stewards to just be at a minimum in the loop on and knowing what's happening, because whatever cleanup happens, there'll be some opportunities down the road for restoration there as well. So we'll want to be in the loop. And as far as the parking goes, that chain on those posts that is over the culvert at the end of the community garden parking lot can be unscrewed and vehicles can drive in there. So maybe like the working vehicles could get in there. They're not that, that path is not that wide, so they couldn't really maneuver them very much. And maybe their personal cars and whatnot could stay in the parking lot. So there isn't so much going on into the, and will you be on site for that, Melissa?
I probably, for the most part, when they're out there doing the test pits, they might not be out there the full complete 3 days. We do have one caveat of we're going to start at the closest side to the abutter at 60 Breakneck, because there might be a small amount of this area that extends onto their private property. So in order to, they want, to protect their property, obviously, but also because DEP is requiring them to do some test pitting, we're going to do the ones on the town property on the innermost part of the project, basically, and backing up to 60 Breakneck Hill roads first, so that if DEP is requiring us to come back and go onto the private property, we have time to get their owner authorization. But right now they are scheduled just the 12th through the 14th, but it might not be the full 3 days, and we might have an extra day thrown in there at the end if need be.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Melissa, do you know how big the crew is that's coming? Any idea? Is it like 10 people or 3?
I'm not sure yet, but I'm asking our LSP so I can get a good number count of trucks and cars so I can place them in appropriate places. So I can get back to you on that one.
So you're doing the placing, because we need them. What we would recommend, I think, would be to have them sort of at the, not in front of the community, not in front of the Ecology Research Garden, and not so after that area, and then at the tail end of where the community gardens are, the least used area of parking for the people using the garden, either of the gardens, sort of.
Yep.
And sometimes we have also had, when we have contractors, depending on the equipment they're bringing in, they park on the grassy area adjacent to the entrance with a chain nearest the Harding Botanical side, so they can park long in. If they have a trailer attached, so they, that's a way they park if they're not going to bring that all the way in. Sometimes they trailer equipment in and then they offload it, so that doesn't interfere with parking for the ecology or the community gardens.
Okay, yeah.
But,
when I've asked them for kind of a mobilization setup, just kind of basic outline of what their potential plans are and what equipment they know they're going to be bringing in. So once I have that, I'll definitely share that with you guys. And, you know, if I have any questions about signage, I can reach out to Joyce first and we can wrap in whoever we need to.
And are we going to do an announcement so that the public knows what's going on?
Yeah, I can put that on the Concom page. I think would be the most visible.
Yeah, I think it would be, and we're probably going to have to close down some trails in that area.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No?
so we might need signage for that too then. And I can assume you can make those laminated signs.
Yep,
Melissa.
absolutely.
Yeah, it seems best, like, you know, where the path that goes on the backside of the north pasture and around, just to close that segment down. Because you don't know what if they're pulling in or out, even if they're not,
Right.
you know, interfering, just to be safe and to keep people away makes sense to me.
Okay. I'll mark up maybe a quick, you know, trail map-esque thing and send it over to Joyce with some sign locations and some potential language once I know how much of the crew is going to be there and on what days. Because I know we are kind of staggered a little bit for just staging of the project.
Also, it just occurred to me that it could be better to just close it off right from the parking lot if there's going to be trucks. You know, I don't know what kind of equipment, but going in and out, you know, it's only a few days.
Right.
It might just be, you know, just keep the parking for the community garden, and ecology, and, you know, let the dog walkers go the other way. It might make better sense. You'll know that better though, Melissa, when you get more information.
When she gets a mobilization.
But I mean, I think
Okay.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, then we still can go in if we need to. But
Okay. No, that's good to know. If you're open to that, then I'll look at that as a potential option once I know how much crew's coming.
Yeah,
safety
and-
first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I also would prefer that questions about that project be directed to Melissa over stewardship. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was planning to put my email and phone number on there.
Okay.
So there's someone, you know, who can pick up the phone.
Thank you.
All right. Why don't we move on to these other couple of updates? So property map, last year we began working with Claire Dacey to do a map for an artistic rendition of a map for us. And that is well underway, and I will be continuing to liaison with her for the committee as we started last fiscal. And right now, I don't think I have a further update unless Freddie knows something.
Can you spell Claire's last name for me?
I think it's DACY.
Thank you.
I think we need to reconnect with her, and I think you can do that, Joyce, via email. She might want some information. She was also looking, and this might be something we can supply, but we need to check with her exactly what she's looking for. She was looking for a trail map. Like, do we know? I thought that might be you, Pat, but I didn't want to give that to you. I think she's looking for like mileage, not mileage, but, you know, or even where the trails are. I also had run, I don't know if you just said this, Joyce, we had a site visit with her. Kath, Joyce, and myself met her there. And afterwards, I gave her a list of all the different, or while we were there, we talked about all the different areas to be highlighted, because it's not just a trail map, right? It's a overview artistic of the whole property. So like where we have the grassland, she might have a painting, a picture of the artistic rendering of the bobolinks that were coming through there, or the kestrel, or the, you know, the pollinator garden. So she was asking if we could put the names of it on the map for her. So Joyce, she may probably ask that from you. I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Because we have you, Kat, you.
Yeah, so what I have, which you can confirm, is the correct map. I used an existing Breakneck Hill map and used it and went to the property and added some of those, took away one of the old ones and added some of the new ones at the very beginning, you know, kind of, there's a lot of little ins and outs. So I use that for the town forest map board, which is remember the Severi Valley trustees had that wonderful map. You can't really separate it, so it ended up on the map board. So we could use that. It's in PDF form, and I can send it to you and to Freddie, and you can mark the special areas if you want for Claire to be able to identify, or you know, whatever you wanted to highlight. And if you could do one of two things. If you wanted to mark up a map, I could edit a PDF, or if the markup is good enough, you can just send the markup to her, however you want to do it. But I can send the map after this meeting.
Thank you.
Also include Brett in who gets sent to,
Yeah.
and Kevin, who's sitting in the audience, I believe, from the Conservation Commission. He's been attending a lot of our meetings.
Oh, Sam Stivers is a visitor as well. So if there's anyone in the attendees that wants to speak, I'm looking for your hands to be raised.
Brett has his hand up.
Yes,
Yeah.
Brett.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, I heard you say something about the mileage on the sections of the map. Did you say we have those, or we might want those?
I don't have them.
I have access to one of those things, you know, that they measure, you know, for, like, say, a trail run, if you're doing a 5K or whatever, so that they can measure out, you know, exactly. I have access to one of those. If we want to do that, I could borrow that for a weekend, and we could measure out whatever segments we want.
Yeah, that's something I do not believe we have, because Kat, you did not do that, right?
Not fully, no. It's
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's
Yes.
not a big property, but you have to start, stop, run around, go in
I
circles.
do want to
Recommend-
acknowledge just the sheer look of excitement on Kat's face. So when Kat said that, I just have to point that out. I'm sorry.
I think we
love it.
want that for the committee, but
Yeah.
I think we also want to check, Joyce, when you talk with Claire, exactly what she's looking for. We don't want to give her information that's not, find out what she needs, because it might be a little bit different than what we think she needs.
Right.
But
Right.
but what we're talking about is something we would like for.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've referenced it over time as something that would be great to have, but we've never had it. So thank you.
And later this will come up, but the maps we have identify the property by letters, that it was where trails segmented fields A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, North Pasture, South Pasture. South Pasture's now been divided into no South Pasture anymore. It's part of the grassland. I'm not sure what that is. And then you have the wetlands, and then you have the front meadow. So at some point we've talked about doing better naming, because B, C, and D is really only the
One field. Yeah.
the whatever. So, but for now, that's what we use. And the beauty of this map is going to be that in the future, after we get it, if we name these areas differently, we can go in and edit the map,
Yeah.
because we'll own the map. We'll have the ability to do that, or certainly hire her again to do something if we wanted it fancier. But I just thought I'd say that. So this is hopefully the goal is to have something really attractive on the kiosk that can be also part of brochures or on our webpage, or and just do a really nice, not just a straight trail map, but highlighting all of the natural attributes of the land that we work so hard to manage and that people love so much. So
Yeah, it will be a real asset for us to have that. So we're excited to get it. So thank you, Brett and Freddie, and I'll be reporting back with further updates next time. And thanks, Kat, also for forwarding that PDF. Community gardens update. So just wanted to share a couple of things about that. So Brett, there is a community garden coordinator who signs people up, measures the plots and whatnot, but she does work with us to establish what are the sort of guardrails and rules for community gardeners, things like that. And I just want to point out, since we haven't met in a while, that the footprint of community gardens did change a little bit in this season, both intentionally and also unintentionally. The unintentional way it changed was just, I think, due to measurement error. The perimeter ended up to be larger all around, meaning it's required more mowing. And so it took a while for that to be sort of identified and to get DPW in there to mow that. And also then by an agreement we worked out in the late spring with the community garden coordinator, intentionally, some of that property has been then, or some of that, the land now is going to be part of the Ecology garden. And that's where you see the big white tarp there right now. That's just a couple of the changes. So Ecology will be planting there as well. Because of that perimeter mowing thing, the weed pressure has been pretty high. I've been in weed whacking a couple once in one area that isn't wide enough for DPW to get its mower into. So yeah, the other, I don't know if we want to talk about the shed here for community gardens or under Breakneck Hill management, but that's pretty much my community gardens update. Other than, I think this past winter we met with Isabel and talked about some of the things for community garden, updated the rules, and I think that that's a good practice. We need to do that again. This winter, have a meeting where we in particular invite her to come in, reflect on the lessons from the past community garden season, see what changes we might need, and that kind of thing. So I just want to cue that up on our own radar as something we'll be wanting to pay heed to this winter. So I
What
can.
is Isabel's last name?
Kerber, Kerber.
Thank you.
So that's all my community gardens update. We can move to the Breakneck Hill management, which really is our priority biggest item. I want to make sure we have our remaining time on that. Freddie, do you want to kick us off with the management?
Yes, I do. Hi, Joyce, I'm going to send an email to everyone, and then when you get it, can you put it up on the screen?
I
And
might be able to.
if I
can
put
help.
Melissa, is Melissa still here or did she leave?
She's here.
Maybe, I don't know
I
who
can
has.
help you.
You can help do that. All right, so I'm going to do that. The first thing on the agenda are 2 items for Joyce to go over, and then I'll email it, so you don't wait for this. The first one is
Is it shed?
encroachment and then shed. So you
Oh,
start and
encroachment.
I'll
All right, so
email
Freddie will
this.
email that and I'll give an update on the encroachment. So as we know, even last season and this season, an abutter from Woodland Road has been bringing a mower onto conservation land and mowing pretty much a football-sized field and a trail to the main trail, and we think widening the existing trails up near the summit. And this winter, Melissa, well, not winter, it was like late spring, just before the mowing season started, Melissa, as conservation agent, sent a letter to the who we suspected was the mower, and reminded them that they're not allowed to do that, et cetera, and asked them to cease and desist, and it's persisted. multiple times I've put signs up saying do not mow, this is not a trail. The signs have been variously tossed or ignored. At one point I was up there seeing if they were still there, and a homeowner just used a lot of rude language directed at me when I politely tried to engage. So since that time, I have not been back up there by myself to see if it continues to be mowed. My understanding, it was mowed as recently as this week. Spoken to the chief of police about what our options are, and pretty much, I mean, it's definitely trespassing and encroachment. It's just, and it's hard because they, you have to kind of catch somebody in the act. So Melissa and I have been talking about how we can demarcate the area more brightly as conservation land, not to be passed on, to make a more visible, even a couple of stakes with a chain or a rope, and hang a sign on it. So that is our next plan, to do that. And obviously the acting chief of police was very helpful, and he said that, you know, anytime him or his officers are glad to walk up there with me or respond, you know, if they got a call about the mowing. So that's.
Can I
yes.
jump in a little bit?
Yes,
One
please.
of it, and then Brett's, but let me just add this. One of the things, like, we thought, if it's obvious there's been trespass, that the police could go in and do something, but he said they can't. It's really a land court issue on these
Oh, yeah.
encroachments. But that why you put up something, because if you have the delineation, say a rope, or they take that down. I think taking the signs and ripping them up is something, but anyhow, that's something they can take action on. So there's some things they can, but how do you know who did it if you're not there? I think that might be why Brett has his hand up.
Yeah. So I have at least one trail camera. I don't know how well that will work, but we could certainly set that up. And I have a friend who has another one who doesn't use it either. So we could set up a couple trail cameras. Those basically kick on whenever there's movement, because you want to see a deer running by or whatever, but a guy mowing the lawn would be the same thing. So it would kick on and catch somebody mowing the lawn, and we'd have a recording of whoever was doing it.
We'd also like to see what the wildlife is there too, which could be kind of cool to have a better, more proactive use of it.
Yeah, I mean, once we used it for this process, if it was done, it would be cool to set them up just other places around the property just to see what's going on.
That would be a fun project to live stream some of that video after the fact and see what's at Breakneck Hill after hours. I'm curious, do we have to put up surveillance in progress as a rule? And two, because we want to probably keep the camera, you know, on a low profile so it's not that visible. So just a couple of questions about how to handle that legally, and, you know, making sure we're not breaking whatever.
I'm not a lawyer, but I would guess if we're directing it at their house, we would probably need to put something up. But if we directed it so their house isn't in the picture, it's only the conservation land, there should be no permission needed, I would think. But somebody should probably ask the cops first.
He didn't bring that, the acting chief did not bring that up as a concern, but it's something I think Joyce would want to.
I can investigate that.
Joyce, I can even talk to Chief Nova if you like.
Thank you, Melissa. I love that. And also, would that have to be hooked up to some like local Wi-Fi, or is it? Or no.
No, those basically they're out in the middle of nowhere, so they have a little memory card in them. So you just have to go every couple of days and pull the memory card out and download it to your computer and put it back in.
Okay.
The concern is that just as our signage gets vandalized,
right, we'd have to make sure it's in an inconspicuous location.
Make it look like a bird, and they'll never know.
If we put two of them,
ooh, I like it, a decoy.
There you go. But if we put two of them so they can see each other, then we'd see them vandalizing the first one. Although I guess then we have no.
Well, and we're not presuming anybody would do that, certainly. But I think, it is an encroachment, and so would like it to stop its habitat, and this could certainly be a path forward for what remains of the mowing season.
May I
So,
throw something else out there? As this has become contentious, certainly by your visit, and we know this has been an issue for many years. Our prior chair, Jim Gorse, lived over there and had dealings. So this is not new, but it's new that it's gotten to this extent of how big the area being mowed, and also what we suspect are enlargement of the trails that are on our, where we have trails going through. DPW mows for us, and before that we had a contractor. They're much larger than they used to be. We don't need an airplane runway for some of these trails, and that's the size they've grown to in some places. So, but I'm wondering if there's, and for the future maybe discussion, but is there an opportunity to invite them to come in and talk to us? I mean, is there any value in that?
I mean, I've certainly, when I had that exchange with the resident, I said, I'd love, for you to come talk to Stewardship. And I guess I felt the response was belligerent. The response was dismissive, with hand motions like this, saying she had talked to us previously and for years, and it didn't do any good. And in fact, I don't think I've ever missed a stewardship meeting, or very rarely in its history. And no abutter ever came to discuss that. So
I just wanted to be on the record that we believe we have done that outreach, that you tried to speak with them, that they live next door to the prior chair who had conversations. So
Yeah.
it's not like we're just jumping into the all guns
No.
blaring. This has been a long-term situation. There was a
Yeah.
time before that there were trails mowed. Different than this. Do you remember?
Yes.
It was connected, and we had to put a stop to that a long time ago. But
Yeah, that's correct. And yeah, she did not seem interested in coming in, but I believe also that when Melissa wrote the letter as conservation agent, that invitation was extended to engage. So multiple attempts. Freddie, was the other item you wanted me to talk about the shed?
yeah, and I sent that. If people see it, I sent it. Did you get it?
Yes, I got it. I opened it. I will share.
Okay, so an update on this shed. So as you know, the community gardens area has a small shed that we have shared with community gardens for storage of our larger items in the winter. And it's a very small shed, and we went before the Conservation Commission in the spring and to alert them that we would like to put up another shed, and their preference is that we do one shed that's shared, one larger shed. So been looking at sheds at forget the name of it, but right there on Route 9 in
Eastern Sheds.
Eastern Sheds, to these are totally customizable, and we do think one larger shed could accommodate both the needs we have to store equipment and signage and things, especially in the off season when they're not being used, and to keep them locked, as well as a divided, have a divider so that then the gardens could have their needs met for their hoses and their different things to do in a way that would be aesthetically pleasing and not have kind of a multitude of sort of outbuildings dotting that landscape. So the footprint would be bigger. It would probably be reoriented a little bit more along the driveway. There is space there between that rock and where the current shed is to go to a larger size and keep out of the 100, whatever that limit is around the wetlands building. So that's something that
And can I give a little background on it? One of the issues is that there is a lot of equipment that we have that is stored outside over the winter, our hoses, our tools, other equipment, and also in Joyce's shed in my car, that we don't have a place to put our equipment. And so we need more space than what is able to be shared. And another thing that's upcoming next year maybe is the requirement for a ADA accessible garden plots, which is potentially going to require some additional equipment for the community garden. So there'll be even less room for us to share in that small shed. So that's just a topic for another day, I would imagine, but it's something to keep in the back of our minds that's going to be coming forward.
But it will help with all the management there and the signs and stuff. So
yeah.
Okay.
So do you have a size yet settled on, or are you working with Eastern Sheds?
We were looking at maybe 10 by 16, 10 by 18, something fairly big.
Yeah.
Because it would be two rooms almost, 2 doors, 1 door for gardeners and 1 door for us.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever worked with Skip's Sheds? They're located in Sutton and Agawam. The reason I ask is you've probably already picked it out, and I won't complicate life, but they sell some of the sheds are pre-built. And so they have them where they will just deliver, if they have the size you want, they'll deliver it for $300 and you have it there. So anyway, I think they also build custom sheds, but if you wanted it sooner versus later, that might be one option.
Oh,
And they're priced reasonably.
Yeah. And Agawam and where else?
Sutton.
Oh,
Sutton is near Douglas or Uxbridge, that area.
okay.
It's right off 146.
Did they do the site preparation as well? You got to flatten it out. But
That's a good question. I don't know that they do the site prep, but that might be something DPW might.
Yeah, Eastern Sheds does not. You have to hire, or DPW or your own contractor to do this prep.
I think landscapers might do that. Landscaping.
We have names of people who will do it, so I think obviously if DPW is one, that's something that would be worth investigating.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kat. I think we can go on to the next item. Ready?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking for the management. I'm looking for the
Oh, were you just seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Shed shopping.
I forget I'm sharing and I'm all distracted on 3 screens. Forgive me.
So, oh dear. Wait a second. I need to get the bigger version of what's on the screen because I can't read that.
Do you want me to make it bigger? Is that?
Oh, maybe if you can.
Mm-hmm. Is that helpful?
Somehow, yeah, that's helpful. So I want to just give just stay right there for now so I don't lose my spot. Thank you. Just to start out, we have a lot of projects that we wanted to do and hadn't started, or we were going to start, and also our annual maintenance that needed to be done. And COVID has put a monkey wrench, because many companies who we used to contract with just didn't have workers. They weren't able to come. They didn't show up, or they couldn't even get back to us. So we're in a situation where we have bigger issues caused by delayed management, as well as old management, not old management, old projects we wanted to do, as well as new projects we discussed doing. So this is sort of a big overview of a lot of things here. So I'm just going to give it a run through. We're not really making too many decisions. I'm not asking you to make decisions tonight too much, but I just wanted to give an overview of where we stand on most of these things. So the first one is the pollination research. And as everyone here in this meeting knows, but maybe people watching at home don't, we've been working with Professor Robert G. Geer since 2015. We've been part of his team helping to do the research. And then when the research came out and has given us a plant list, we created a Ecology research garden using those plants. And we've also, the Stewardship Committee has diligently incorporated his management suggestions into our management. So we have flagged plants that we have found from doing different selective mowing that we didn't know were there. We flagged them not to be mowed in different years. That's an annual thing we do when we have a mow, like don't mow these plants because they're ones we want on the property. As well as we added some other areas besides the Ecology research garden. I'm happy to say that this year, Dr. Jagir he's visited weekly himself, and these surveys have been ongoing since 2015. This year, he additionally had 3 grad students doing research at Breakneck Hill. It's one of his major research sites. I don't know how many he has across the state. We were his first one, and he has these students doing other sites as well. But at Breakneck Hill, he has recently told me that we had Bombus fervidus is the most in danger of extirpation from the state, heading towards extinction, along with Bombus vagans. And I don't know the exact numbers of vagans, but Bombus fervidus this year had more documentation of numbers than all the years since 2015 to 2022 put together. So something's going well. You know, we're making a difference, and it's very, very encouraging. So that's the overall update, and he continues to provide information and resources to us. And I'll get into that a little bit later. This may not be the most cohesive outline, but I'm just going to go with it. So last year we decided to put in a roadside meadow. One of the misunderstandings, and we had it as well, is that it's funny, he must have heard his name, he just texted me. One of the we have conservation land and we put trails on it. You know, this is historically what has been done. And then we found out, oh, you got to deal with the invasive species. So we worked on that in the early 2000s when Breakneck Hill had been declared the worst bittersweet infestation in Metro West. And the Stewardship Committee has worked and has been amazing because it's the follow through. I've been told by our prior consultant from Mass Audubon and other experts that what we have accomplished is not just what we accomplished, but that 20 years later, we're still in good shape relatively. We'll get to that later, but we were at like 90-something% invasive free in the areas treated for many years. What happens is most people do the treatment and then they, you know, they think they're done and they go away, and, you know, 10 years later, it's all back again. And we have really, really worked hard on that. So I'm giving a little bit of this for Kevin and for Brett to understand. That is just really a testament to this. What we call it is the stick-to-itiveness. I'm not sure what's going on with the highlighting, but can you kind of stop that? Because I keep getting distracted, if possible. Because we're still up on the roadside meadow, if that makes a difference. So I don't know where I was going.
Lose you there, or can other people still hear? Ready?
What?
Oh,
Yes.
I know I'm here. I just totally lost my train of thought.
oh, okay.
So anyhow, we've done a good job keeping the invasives out, but what we then found out was that even without invasives, we don't have a really good plant mix. These conservation land are old agriculture land, and they are full of non-native ag weeds, and even because these are old farmlands, the old orchard, studies have come out that even 100 years after, 75 years or 100 years after you stop agriculture, you're nowhere near a high percentage of a native plant composition that should have been there. So that's one of the things we're trying to address now. So the roadside meadow is alongside Breakneck Hill Road from one parking lot to the other. And we agreed to put a new meadow in, focusing on native grasses and plants on Dr. G. Deere's list. And we were going to start that this season. There was a mow done, but then we had a hiccup. So we had to pull back because we're going to use another method to prep the soil. So what you do is you can't just seed in or plant into a existing not native plant community, because you can never really compete. These plants won't compete well. So what we have to do is get it down to what they call a soil prep. And what we believe we're going to do, and it will probably start next year, is a method of overseeding and mowing with what they call a cover crop. And that still has to be defined. So we were all set to start this year, but we're putting it off to next year because some of the issues with having a contractor that could do this work when we needed to start and not being available. So we want to get that done for next spring. We do have an expert meadow consultant who is also not the one who we were going to hire to do the work, because he does more of a small scale than the equipment that will be needed for this. So that will come back. Then there's the 2021 Ecology Research Meadow. That's at the edge of the North Pasture. We planted that, and then we've had trouble with, when I talked about soil prep, it just wasn't, it wasn't done enough. There was a lot of weed pressure, and also weeds always will blow in, even if you have the soil down to bare soil and you plant. The weed pressure there, we're not really sure what's good there. Previously, we talked about doing an inventory to see what we can save or not. When we had the meadow expert come in, he suggested that we do the roadside pasture as a meadow because it was a better location than this research meadow area, which is at the edge of the farm dump, and it's a corner of the corner of the North Pasture. However, there may be some really good plants there. We had Bombus fervidus documented in that area, as well as we believe that some of the plants did come in when we seeded, but we don't know. So there's additional work that could be done there. Oh, the other thing about the roadside pasture is having an attractive flower meadow there, would be valuable to the citizens of Southborough. So there's that. Then we have the Ecology Research Garden, which It has been amazing this year. Just incredible, right? The flowers, the numbers of Bombus fervidus and vagans have been through the roof. Later in the season, early in the season, we had them. Right now, if you go in there, I've described it as being in a action film. You know, when people play computer games and all of a sudden around the corner comes the guy in fatigues and a gun. Well, you go around the corner of the flowers here and out, you know, I almost bump into butterflies and hummingbirds and all the bees and the birds and the goldfinches. I mean, it's just alive. So this is a real testament to the dedication of this committee to keeping that garden going. Having said that, we haven't done a great job on keeping it weed free, and it needs some work. We also have, all of this is new information. So when we planted some plants that maybe we need to take out. Some of the willows got too big and, you know, we need to take them out. So there's work there. We've also got this extension area on the other side of the fence from the community gardens leaving. And I mean, with not leaving, but, you know, not needing as much space. And it's also one of the reasons we got the Ecology Research Garden in that section is it's closer to the wetlands. It's, you know, abuts the wetlands to the north side and to the, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong side, to the east and to the south, right? So two corners, two of the exits are wetlands. So it really was too wet for a lot of the gardens. And that's also why this new area has been not included as much in the community gardens, because it too was also a little bit wet for gardening. So what are we doing with that land? That's why we have the white tarp there that's trying to use that. It's a new method for getting the soil prep to, you know, there's a solarization of the weeds underneath, and we're hoping when we take it off, we could plant into it. And we also have purchased a, Brett, you've used it because we've lent it out for other places, but it belongs to the Stewardship Committee. The drill, Joyce is good at it too. I haven't tried it. The drill with an auger, which means you can drill holes better. And we're hoping we can use that in this area. Because one of the things is Dr. Gigier just notified me that there's some funding left in a grant he has that he's letting me outside of my role on the Stewardship Committee. So I just want to make that clear that I'm ordering supplies for him that may, some of them come to for Breakneck Hill. But it's for other areas as well. That's why it's not town funds. It doesn't have to go to Breakneck Hill. We'll have to discuss how to manage that later. But one thing he asked for, and this is one area I'd like a vote or a AOK, is we don't really have shade gardens with his plants. We don't have any shade because we're in full sun. And he'd like shade. He suggested putting in a redbud tree and maybe a plum. And I'm looking around, where's there an area, and we could put it, you know, where the area is planted right now, before the white tarp. So if we went into the white tarp a little bit and planted a larger, because we have funding for this, a larger redbud tree, it would give us the shade we want. It wouldn't shade, it wouldn't, because they're a small tree, it wouldn't go over and shade the community gardens, but this would help benefit. We do have a couple of trees out on the outside of the gardens, but when you plant really small, it takes a long time for them to get big. So I don't know if you would agree to that planting in that area. I'm going to stop there and let you discuss that.
I have
So,
a question.
yeah, go ahead, Freddie.
If you don't mind,
Go
just
ahead,
a minute.
Kat. Yeah.
It's for the minutes. So you had mentioned when we were first talking about the Ecology Research Garden, the amazing numbers of fervidus, and there's another bee that you referred to. Can you spell that bee?
I can, although not when I'm texting. Vagans.
Thank you,
Vegan.
Megan. Yeah, got it.
Because it
Okay.
always spell checks to vegan and drives the professor nuts.
Well, that's what I heard actually, so I'm glad you.
Yeah, because I
Thank you.
probably talk that way, right? Vagans. Those are the two most at-risk species in this area. There's 3 statewide. Actually, there's 2 that have already, are already on the endangered species list nationally because they're no longer in Massachusetts. So for the redbud trees.
Yeah. So one thing that occurs to me about putting a tree in that area, which, they're beautiful, beautiful trees. So, I mean, that they do kind of like wet. So further back might be, like in the wetter part might be better, but also like the sun moves. So while that will provide some shade immediately under it, that shade is going to move throughout the day, right? So is one tree enough to create a planting space for, enough sort of shade plants is what my concern would be.
How about 2 trees or 3?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How about 2 or 3 trees?
I think
I don't
you
want to
get-
take up the whole area though, do I?
No, I know, and trees can be big. I mean, I would have to research how big red buds get, but I don't think they get huge, like maybe 20 feet or something at most. Like, I don't think they're really big trees, but I think you'd get better planting area if we're looking to create shade planting area, because his research is expanding to include more shade loving plants that we don't have spots for. I think it would have to probably be more than 1 tree.
And we can always add to it later if we find out this doesn't work or.
Right, but it's harder to take it away because we're not going to cut them down.
I didn't mean take it down. I said we can add to it. I didn't
Oh,
say
yes, no,
cut
I
it down.
understand.
Yeah, I have one growing in my yard and it's not anywhere near any wet. So I don't know that that's I don't know how important that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it may be a preference, but you know what? There's a lot of things that have a preference that do well in a variety of conditions. So
I can guarantee you there's anywhere near there's some water underneath, because it's hence why it was too wet for the community gardens,
yes.
further. So there's that. I think the issue is because this grant is expiring, I kind of need to do it.
Yep.
I mean, some trees we can buy now and plant next year, but for this here, we could, one thing that came up because I would like to get a larger tree. And I just saw that Western Nurseries, if you spend over a certain amount, they'll plant it for you. And that would be a real relief. If it makes fiscal sense, it would be a real relief because, even finding DPW to have time right when we need it, or, how are you going to get a large tree planted? Right. And I don't even know how large these trees are. They only have a few left at Western Nurseries. I'd have to go look. But they're bigger than the small ones we get. Go ahead, Brett.
I looked it up and it says, well, if it's the eastern redbud, those grow, the maximum is 20 to 30 feet.
Yeah. 20 to 30. That's about what I thought. Yeah.
But it's not the height so much as the width that creates the shade, right? Yep. And they're not.
Yes.
They're not a real bushy tree either. So
yeah, they're prunable too.
Do you think I should try that? I mean, do you want me to or not?
I think you got the money that is explicitly for this, and you're going to lose it. We might as well try it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it isn't stewardship money, so I don't know that I guess if we had a vote, it would be more about, are we okay with putting those there? And I mean, that portion of the property is, kind of dedicated to this research, and this is extending that. They're beautiful trees, so it it certainly adds to the landscape. So,
And I had considered if, I always consider about the views because people love the property for the views. And I don't think it's going to do anything to take away from the view because actually right now, that's another topic for another further down in this schedule. But, the wetlands used to be wide open. And now, shrubs and trees are growing in there, and that will be a management decision of this committee at some point, and it's not something to discuss now, but I don't think they're going to block the view enough for people to complain. And certainly between the flowers and the leaves, they're a beautiful tree. So
they sure are. They're big heart-shaped leaves for people who don't know. Also, new trees need tremendous amounts of water, and we're in a drought. But like we have the ability to water there if I've been going up and watering pots there as a couple times a week. The potted plants that need attention, but new trees definitely need like gallons and gallons. So we'd have to make sure we had some sort of volunteer system in place for watering. But I think I can't think of an argument against it. I don't have an argument against it.
Kat,
I love it.
Brett. So I can go ahead and investigate. Okay.
Yep.
So
Do we need to
probably I
vote
would
or we
drive,
just agree?
huh?
Do we need to vote for the minutes or just agree?
I think that it's okay to agree and support it because it isn't stewardship money.
No,
Okay.
it's the putting it in that area, which we've
It's-
already determined is part of his research area.
So we'll put for the minutes several up to, several meaning 2 or 3, your choice.
Okay. I will also ask them about the shade because you're right, Joyce, depending on where the shade goes, when they'll have at the end of the summer, the long shadows,
Yeah.
you don't want to be surprised that all of a sudden our shadows are over someone's garden area. So I will confirm that to be sure with the sun pattern. The other issue is, and this goes to, and I don't have it here, but creating a volunteer network is something we need to consider. We talked about it before, like adopt a tree to keep the bittersweet off. Watering is an issue. I had thought of, and I was doing volunteers right now. It's a little tidbit thrown in. We can put, I don't know, there's no volunteer on this list, but
I've added it to this one.
we could put one thing we had thought of, and that will come up later, is using like adopt a plant not in the Ecology garden as much as in the other pollinator gardens to keep some area weed free, so if you know a plant and that plant, what's not that plant, it's easier to weed than if you're just looking at the whole garden and trying to figure out what's a weed and what's a plant. So I think there's that, but additionally, there is the opportunity, and I need your input on this, to get some plugs right now to fill in the rest of the garden here, that white area. And that would require, because they're plugs, they need more attention, and we'd have to plant them right away. And we also have all the plants that need to go in that are being we got donations and we had some purchases that we haven't put in. Some of them are waiting to go in where the willows need to come out. So we need a work day there. But additionally, I can skip ordering the plugs from New England wetland plants, and they're not wetland plants per se, or we could get them and use the auger to drill holes and plant them within the next month and get everything else planted and move forward. But I need to know what your take is on having a volunteer work day there for putting these plants in.
And Freddie, that would also involve rolling back that silage tarp that's there and planting under that, or?
Yeah, and I took a peek, and as I always say, soil prep, soil prep, soil prep. With the weed pressure in that property, it's just, you never get it weed free. And we learned that. We had the black plastic down. It looked like, it was all soil, no weeds really. We weeded whatever weeds were left, and we planted the first planting area Dr. Jadir asked for is grasses and some other plants he purchased for us, which was the wood betony and the Canadian milk vetch. And I was busy we're putting the Open Space Preservation Commission's partnering with the South Open Land Foundation at the Beals Preserve, and both Joyce and Kat and Brett have helped over there. And so we're busy putting that garden in, and I came back, it seemed like a week later, and the weeds were taller than the plants we put in. So the weed pressure is always going to be there. But I'm hoping the white plastic was a little bit more, it's supposedly what people are doing now, would have some better results on preventing it. The trouble is, if you dig the soil up, every time you disturb the soil, what you are doing is exposing an existing weed seed source.
Yeah.
Which is why we would hope, if we didn't, what we did to that area where we planted the plants I just talked about, it was thick with roots and stuff. So we actually used those gardening pitchfork things and turned it over and made it available to plant. And what we actually did was we stirred up all the weed seeds. So if in the rest of the area we don't do that and we use the auger, that might help the pressure of the weeds. I don't know why that's a digression, but that's just a
Yeah, certainly the auger makes digging holes faster.
I would love to get my hands on it.
I was thinking if we had to do the whole place, we might be able to do it, maybe 2 augers if we had 2 auger people. But the other thing is, I'll tell you that I work with this woman, Jean Carla from Chelmsford, and she just did a garden, and she planted completely with her winter sow plants, 300 plants she put in using that auger. But, not everyone's a John Carla or a Gary Phillips who does like work in Northborough. So it's doable, but I want to know if there's a commitment, because I can't do it myself.
I mean, I can certainly help on a volunteer day to do that. I guess it's a big area, so it's a little overwhelming for watering without maybe the backup of having some, forget what they're called, those oozy hoses.
Oh yeah.
Soaker hoses?
So thank you, soaker hoses. I'm like those.
We have soaker hoses.
Oh, we have them. Okay, I had forgotten.
Well, I have, they're mine, but we can figure that out, or we could get those.
Yeah, so because that tarp is a very large area, so it's one thing to go up. Yeah, I mean, it could take hours and hours to water, keep them watered and alive going into fall and winter. I mean, just, several times a week. So I think if we agree that we have the wherewithal and the volunteers to have, a planting day or two where we do all that, I think it's also important that we not only invest in the plants, but more of that heat treated straw type stuff that doesn't have seed matter in it, to hopefully tamp down weeds and make sure we have enough of like all that to make it in as best shape possible.
So I did contact that was the salt marsh hay, and that is weed free, and nobody has it anymore right now. They're all sold out, and they're not sure about next year. But there are the smaller bales from we got it at Weston Nursery, and Bigelow sells them as well. So I would order it that way.
Yeah.
So, and those worked well.
Yeah.
And actually, those smaller bales had way more hay inside than you thought because it's like compressed, heat treated. And I'm sorry, because I'm kind of running this part, but I see that Brett has his hand up. So
Brett?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd be happy. I'm not going to be at home for 2 more weeks, but after that, I'd be happy to help out with that project. And especially if things are flagged ahead of time, I'd also be happy to head over, on random afternoons just to, kill an hour of time just to get out of the house. Since I sit at my desk all day, every day, programming, which gets boring. So, yeah, so I'd be happy to help. But like I said, I wouldn't be able to start helping for another 2 weeks till I get back home.
okay. That's
Quick-
good news.
Quick question on, so the salt marsh straw is not available, but you said the small bales of hay are they salt marsh straw?
No,
too?
they're heat treated so that
Heat
they
treated,
kill all the
okay.
weed seeds.
Yeah. Okay, and
So-
then, thank you. I can help it, and this sounds like if something were flagged out, like Brett said, I could do weekday evenings are a little easier for me than weekends. So that's what my problem has been all summer, not being able to help because a lot of the weekends are taken up with other activities. So if something were flagged out, I mean, I'd be happy to go out and do a couple evenings of auger work.
Sounds fun. Well, I think the issue what Joyce is bringing up also, and I was hinting at in another area, is that once you get them planted, that's the first thing. The second thing is then they need to be watered. And the third thing is then they need to be weeded. So, there's a commitment, and I have to admit, all of those things had to happen in the Ecology Research Garden when we planted that in 2020. But it was during COVID and people had a lot more free time to donate. So we did, and that's a bigger area, and we did, and it was a drought year as well. So we know we can do it. It's just realistic expectations of volunteers. And it's not going to be just us. We'll have to develop that volunteer network.
Can we? I know you can hook soaker hoses up to timers. Could we do that for some of the watering?
Smart.
So I don't know, like we turn the water on and off as we use it there. The spigots have like an on-off thing. So I don't know what the implications are of having it turn off and then have the water in the hose in the hot sun. I've had expensive hoses spring leaks when I forget to turn them off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You have to be on.
The other-
So
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is when we water, when there's heat in the hose, I tell everyone you have to, like a baby's bottle, make sure it's not too hot. You have to run the hose and always find a place not near the plants because you could actually brew a cup of tea with how hot the water comes out of the hose.
Oh yeah.
In the hot days. So, we never want to waste water. So we put it near a plant, but not real close so that you're, getting the water to the roots. And then once it gets cool enough, then you can water, but you can't just turn it on because that red hose that comes from the, our connection, that heats it up really good.
Yeah. I'm wondering if, like, I know community gardens does not allow unattended sprinklers, but maybe also just even sprinklers so that while someone's working in one part of the property, in one part of the ecology, some other part is being watered, just almost for.
We had a massive, very well done area for ecology when we planted it, and we had multiple of those connectors, and we found the sprinklers really didn't work that well, and you evaporate more than you would think you would, right?
The soaker hoses work better, I think.
So we used the soaker hose, and then also had one that you could hit the spots because the soaker hose doesn't get everything.
Right.
But you could even, conceivably you could start the soaker hose and then come back, go get a cup of coffee and come back. You be the timer.
Yeah, and that is something that I could generally manage at least a couple of days a week. I'm commuting only usually 2 days a week now, so I can get up there and do that kind of thing. It's not that far, just like Brett said, go up, do something for, I'm going to go water the pots and get a cup of coffee at Starbucks, then come home back at my desk kind of thing.
The other thing I would say is that if yesterday and today's any indication, maybe we, broken this drought, not counting on it, but
Right.
and if it's not as hot, it does, or if it's cloudy days, it's not as intense. We certainly at the tail end of the worst time. So, all right. So if you're okay with that, I will order the plugs. Are you okay with that?
How many plugs is it?
Oh,
Because it does scare me, and it's a really big area. So can we do like half of it? And keep the tarp on half?
we could, but the question is then what are we saving the other half for?
The other plugs that we didn't order. I don't know.
Yeah,
guess
I haven't even done the measurements of how big it is and how many plugs it would take. So,
I mean, it just seems like an area of that white tarp could handle like, I don't know, 500 plugs.
well,
But I don't know, because I don't know how close you put them together and stuff.
I average a foot of one plant a foot, right? And if we put the tree in, that's going to take up some area.
That's
Right?
true.
And if we put a couple of trees in, and that will be a different type of plant that we may just keep that bare underneath, use burlap bags, for example, to keep the area under the trees bare until we come up with the ground cover we need
Yeah.
or the plants we need.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. I'm telling you, one woman alone who's, in my age
Superwoman.
bracket.
Yes.
Yeah, superwoman, but in my age bracket did 300 in I don't know how short a period of time. And I think, I won't even tell you what Gary's doing.
Okay.
So
Brett and I could race, and that would be kind of fun if we each had a hog.
Nice.
See how fast we could do it, and whoever wins is the.
yeah, we'll do that.
Whoever
Sounds good.
wins has to pay for Starbucks, or whoever loses has to pay for Starbucks.
There you go.
All right, so I'll go forward, and then, if we can't use them all, I'll see who else can take them, because these are not property of the stewardship committee until we take ownership.
Right. So maybe they could go in at Beals or one of the other places. Yeah.
I'm stuck with the same problem, but yes.
Yes.
So
got it.
okay.
this money is from the Dr.
Yes.
Gear stuff. It's the same thing. It's not town money. Okay.
So I'd also like to buy some, and this is just a no-brainer, some like fencing for trees to protect them. I'd like to get some fencing to go around the blueberry. This is just small individual fencing. There's no way I could put together a fence proposal by the time this has to be done. It just can't be done. But so for right now, I'd like to have that. So that's also would not be out of our pocket. But we have some plants out there that, we have, they get eaten if we don't keep, the blueberry bushes have laundry baskets over them because they're just totally eaten down to the ground. All right, so I'm going to move on because the rest of this, if I'm okay to do that, and then I'll get the tree and the plugs, I'll order them. And then mowing schedule. So this is normally I'm moving on. Mowing schedule. Normally we try to mow B, C, and D, which is the grassland bird area, as soon after August 1st as possible. I've had conversations with Dr. Jadir. He doesn't know where the Bombus fervidus nest is. We suspect it's in one of the grassland areas. We might mow early. So what we want to do, for those who don't know, bumblebees have a life cycle where they come out of, one queen comes out of hibernation early spring. She sets up a nest, then creates this whole hive system. And at the end of the season, the males are produced, they fertilize the eggs of the new queen that are produced. And then that queen has to go out and find a place to hibernate, and the rest of the nest, everyone else dies. Nature's brutal. So the one queen, and I'll send it around. I was at Ecology and I saw a queen there, and it was so exciting. And what was also exciting is it was on, I mean, I've looked for years to try to see these bumblebees, and to actually see one that didn't fly away right away, and it was on the you know, it was on, everyone should go in there if you get a chance and take a look. It was on the Monarda
Monarda?
fistulosa, and it was almost right at eye level, and it just stayed there, right? So I asked Rob, and he goes, oh, that's because she's a queen. She doesn't, the next year queen, she doesn't really go back to the nest. She's bulking up for hibernation and waiting for some guy to come along. So, I mean, I've never been there where you could see a bumblebee just hanging out for half an hour. And it was very exciting, and I got a pretty good picture. So anyhow, the mowing schedule, how that relates is that because we saw that queen, it indicates the end of their season when they go into hibernation. We also don't know exactly where they hibernate, but it's likely not as surface area in grasses as their nest. So as soon as we kind of feel that the nesting areas season's done, we should try to get that B, C, and D mowed. However, we used to have a contractor, Twin Pines, and they have been impacted by, being overly busy and not enough employees. So it's not clear if they can mow for us anymore. So we need to find out if they can or if someone else can. And then we also need the rest of the property set up to be mowed later in the season. And because we haven't, last year, we only got the B, C, and D and south pasture mowed. And because we didn't get the north pasture and the rest of the letters mowed, a simple mow is not going to be as easy because bigger size saplings have come in. We're going to need bigger equipment, I think. There's other complications from the autumn olive, which is a invasive that we have. It has spread like wildfire. The north pasture is full of a new invasive, the Bradford Pear, that needs to be addressed. So we have a big mowing issue combined with a big invasive issue, and we'll go into the invasives later. But we need to find a contractor that has the right equipment and the availability to show up and do the job as needed. Brett, you want to say something?
Yeah. So we have, I don't know anything about our budget at all, but I assume we pay regular rates for this kind of stuff. Okay. My brother-in-law he builds houses, so he works with a lot of landscapers. I'll at least ask him if he knows anybody who has that kind of capability and the staff to do it.
That would help. We also are probably looking at more of a tree clearing company than a landscaper, and a flail mower, and because one area of the property has, we left some sassafras trees, and sassafras trees are clonal. So they send out, shoots. So there's like a half acre, and normally maybe it's even an acre now. Normally it's just little sap, knee high, and then we mow them, right? But these have become, bigger, and it's not going to be that easy, or a mower is not going to necessarily, a simple mower is not going to address it. Sassafras are a early successional habitat type species, and we actually have like Sassafras Meadow. I don't know anyone else that has that claim to fame. And it's beautiful.
It's also a host plant. It's a host plant for a butterfly too.
Yeah, for the swallowtail, spicebush swallowtails use spicebush and sassafras. So right now I think it's their caterpillar time, so we don't want to mow it during that period of time. And probably one of the reasons we have so many spicebush swallowtails at Breakneck.
Oh, I see them all the time up there, and I think that's another complicating factor for the mow is waiting for some of these habitat issues to be less in the height of their season. So when it's a
Right.
little bit colder, because we didn't do as much, we couldn't get as much mowing done last year. And I did actually hear from a different abutter. I sort of forgot about this. I had an email that was copied also to Melissa about, hey, it's getting wild up there. They're not going to be mowing anymore. It used to be mowed from time to time. Somebody who abuts on Woodland Road. And, you know, we do mow the whole property at least once a year. And,
Except for not last year.
but except for not last year, right?
So there's that. So we need to get a mowing contractor. And then this is a long-term or bigger issues. B, C, and D, the grassland birds, we're trying to get bobolink to nest there. They come through. We've been told there's a couple of problems. Well, there's 3 problems now, but one is we don't have the right grasses. The other one is when we mow, we just leave the thatch there. So bobolinks nest on the ground, and then the birds need to run on the ground in between clumping grasses. If there's too much thatch or there's not the right type of grass, they can't do that. And why they need to do that is 2 reasons. Because they're ground nesting, the parents will run away to get predators away from them, as much as the babies can't fly for, I don't know, 2 weeks after they after they hatch. So if, they're running around on the ground when they're out of the nest before they fly away, and they need to have, if you think of almost like bare dirt in between the clumping plants. The other thing that's not great is we've got a huge amount of, because of the later we mow, the more of the forbs grow in, the more goldenrods and milkweeds, which are great for pollinators, but not great for grassland habitat. Think you want grasses in the grassland. So we need to be looking at improving that habitat long term. Next one down is bluebird boxes. We've had bluebirds there for a long time. We've had bluebird boxes, and we had an Eagle Scout project also with the kestrel box, which is the next item underneath the bluebird box. Both of those need management. I mean, we just put them up and leave them, and that's not really how you're supposed to manage them, especially if somebody was nesting in there. I think it was an English sparrow in the kestrel box. Means there's an old nest material, and I think we set it up so that we could lower it so it could be cleaned out, because if you leave the old nest material in, you're leaving parasites and potential disease issues. Same thing with the bluebird boxes, and there's a whole nother maintenance program that we once talked about having Jean-Carla come in and talk to us about. We don't have to go into all the details, but certainly she has managed bluebird trails in Chelmsford, and has over 2,000 fledglings under her thumb, not under her thumb, but under her oversight. So that's pretty important, I think. So that's something we want to look at in the future.
Yeah, maybe we could have her in this winter to teach us about that and how to set up a program.
Right. And some of it, one of the biggest problems is the English sparrow non-native that takes the nest box over. And I'm not going to discuss some of the techniques, but at the very least, you're supposed to, if they build a nest in there, you're supposed to take the nest out or be monitoring it. If you can, Kat, can you scroll up a little bit? There we go.
Can you spell Giancarla? Is it Joan or John, or how do you say her name?
Giacarla. I called her Gia Carla for a long time.
Oh, but it's pronounced John.
Yeah, GIA, maybe there's an N. GIA.
Yeah, Giankarla, Giancarla.
Thank you.
There's a K in there? I'm her friend, I don't know.
I don't know. I thought her
it.
name was Giancarla.
I can email it to you, Kat. The next issue is Wildflower Hill. That's section A on the map. And unfortunately, well, first of all, the pollinator gardens. This committee is going to need to decide if we're going to abandon them or if we're going to invest in reclaiming them. Nothing's been done in a year. We weeded them out last year. There's over, I would have to say there's, I don't know how many thousands of dollars of investment there and thousands of hours of volunteer time, one thing that happened, I was thinking, when I can't even tell you how bad it is, but when you don't weed it, it gets bad. I haven't been up there because I've been busy elsewhere. And I've looked at the one around the kiosk area, around that area, and that's really in bad, rough shape. So they can be done, but it's an investment. And I think at this time, it's an investment beyond volunteers or with some paid help in addition to that. I think it's worth it, would be my recommendation. I was questioning it, like, how often can we go through this? Like, it gets out of control and then we have a big push to, reclaim it. Well, last year, I think it was last year, Kat, we were adding plants in there and you helped put the little weeding trail in. Do you remember that? Was that last year or the year before?
Yeah, I can't see that trail anymore.
Well, we put in more plants. So I'll just explain this. One of the great things about those gardens, when we first had Dr. G. Gear come, and we thought we were doing great, and he pointed out from 2015 to 2021, all the years he surveyed, and we put all the right pollinator plants in based on the pollinator list, plant list of other groups. Never once did we document a Bombus viridis in those gardens because it wasn't the right plants. And as soon as we built the Ecology Research Garden, they showed up. So it was a clue. And last year we added in plants from Dr. G. Gear's list. And this season was the first time there was documentation of Bombus viridis over in those gardens. So to me, that in itself says we've diversified the habitat. We're doing good. It's worth keeping. Plus, they're attractive. I think people like them. I've seen people picnic in front of them or families taking portraits. So if the committee wishes, we should have a plan to reclaim those. And I think, we can talk, I think we're going to have another meeting to go over funding and stuff, but if we'd have to commit to, I think, spending some funds and then also finding somebody who will do the work. Because, just like with mowing, getting anyone to do the work. And volunteers, is a component ongoing, but right now to reclaim it, I think we need more than just volunteers. And I'm opening that up for everyone to discuss.
Yeah, it's a lot of territories with the we have some core regular volunteers who come out, but they're going to come out to like one property, one piece each time. And so with Ecology plus all these others, it's like a core set gets spread kind of thin. And so that it's challenging. Having worked on all those gardens, it's very rewarding to see the work get done, but it'd be nice if we could maybe have a plan that encompasses more than volunteers as a way to keep those gardens going.
And can we,
Short term, long term, that's a little bit different, but I think short term, it's a mandatory right now.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Brett.
Right.
I was just going to say, like, can we, basically give a thumbs up to all of these, but then go back and prioritize them. So if we want to plant a bunch of stuff where the white tarp is now, we say, okay, maybe that's our top priority. Once we're done there, maybe we finish that 3 weeks from now. Maybe we don't finish it for 2 months, but whenever we finish it, then we move on to the next thing. Could we do something like that? Or so if we have time, we fix these pollinator gardens. If we don't, it goes to next.
A couple points. I think moving forward, you can do that with volunteer groups. Right now, if we want, I think it's a question of saving the old pollinator gardens. And if we can't find someone to do the work, but I think with the volunteers we have, we can manage. It's also in a set area, the Ecology Research Garden. It's there. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like spread far and wide. So I think focusing there is critical because it is research and we also have the right plants there. But I think the other side, would be, even if we just once a year, have to hire someone to help us, we can manage to keep it going. And then one thing I think we need to investigate more of. Last year, a friend's company was looking for a volunteer day, and I don't know, was it 18 people showed up and helped out for, 5 hours, and, it was incredible how much work got done. And we had someone help us, to direct. That was, that also helped. But there's other companies around town that do these team building volunteer days. So maybe we could, as we start to get new stewardship committee members and maybe create a bigger, robust volunteer program, that's an area we could go to. I'll just like to say, I was at a meeting with Chestnut Hill Farm, and they're talking about creating a volunteer program there, and also looking for, and I was kind of, well, I wasn't joking. I said, well, you can't have any of mine. The reality is we're spread thin, and what we want to do is always make it bigger. But if we partner with an organization such as that, and come up with better ideas. Melissa talked about people asking her, they want to volunteer, and having some sort of a, there's potential out there that we're not tapping into. And certainly, Kat, with making trails, we're all always looking for volunteers, and there's different types of projects. Like scout troops will do things, but they're not always a one day, one shot is not what we really need for ongoing maintenance. But there's different ways of, same thing as a company that comes one day a year, but there's certainly great value in developing that. And I just think we need to, I would recommend we look into that over the winter. So for right now,
I agree. And because I'm not really sure how to tap into that sort of corporate volunteer world, because it's not the world that I come from for my profession. So yeah, I'd have to think about how to tap that.
There's also at least 2 schools in Southborough that require their students to do community service. So I don't know if that would be useful.
yeah. And I know that they had a volunteer day. I've reached out many times over the years and had some that were going to show up, and, students are students. So I think we can be more proactive with that. And, Pat, I think you put out, we just didn't get it together in time they had a volunteer day, and the trails utilize that.
Yeah, no, we had so many volunteers, we did not need additional ones at that time. But yeah, that was a huge opportunity where the entire school, was it Algonquin? I forget. The entire school was taking a work day, and all the students were looking for projects. So that seems like a really good opportunity. But it was June 10th. I think there's some weeding needs by June 10th, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not just weeding that's the only volunteer opportunity, but we can look at it, because what happened is we got in the queue, but we were late, and they put it out. And what happened is I guess it was some issue where the original call got a lot of people who were dedicated and interested, and they signed up. And then when the second call went out, it was people who were like, hey, I can skip school for a day. And they had to cancel the additional volunteers because it was like a little wild or something. So we have to be proactive ahead of time. But yeah, plants start growing in April. So certainly we'd have weeding or something, trail management, or trimming off the what's that, the vine, bittersweet.
Yeah.
Or cleaning out we don't want to clean out the nest. Anyhow, I want to move on. Wildflower Hill, because the mowing didn't get done, I'm just going to tell you that the Wildflower Hill has become, invasive hill. There's buckthorn, you name it, all the invasives that are listed below. So that needs to be dealt with on the hillside from when you walk up the hill to where the pollinator gardens are. That whole area is really mostly invasive now. And as well, maybe mostly is not right, but And then there's also, we had that bee hotel, and you can't just put up bee hotels without monitoring them. So we need to double check what's going on there, just like the Bluebird and Kestrel boxes.
Right.
Now, I'm going to go on to the invasives.
Is this invasive list what's on Wildflower Hill that I could just copy and paste, or?
No, you don't need to put anything in.
Okay.
You don't have to have a complete transcript of this. Just say,
Invasive management needs to be dealt with.
yeah, that's it. So on the property overall, purple loosestrife became a problem, and we're into our third year of management this year. And for some reason, we thought we had a really good handle on it last year, and it exploded this year. And I'm hearing in other native plant groups, everyone's saying the same thing, and it might be because of the drought that it had more ability to get seeded in. I don't know, but so we've had that treated this year, and that was I don't know if it was a 5-year program we signed up for, but this was our third year. And one thing Dr. Jagir told us, that because of the purple loosestrife, there was in the meadow, the wet meadow, that when we first started the treatment, the Mimulus rigens, the monkey flower, which is a favorite plant of Bombus fervidus and vagans, that population had exploded, and so were the numbers of the at-risk bumblebees over there. And this year, because of the purple loosestrife, the native plant population crashed. And in that area, even though we have more of the bumblebees overall, but in that area, we've lost their presence a little bit. So there's that. Bittersweet is an existing problem because we haven't kept up with it. There's particularly on the back side of the summit, which is on the map. And when you get this, numbers will make sense. Brett, I think it's H and I, and also along a lot of the edges of the fields. It's, it's really very serious. It's also very serious on the opposite side of the path from the north pasture in the corner. It's impacting trees. It's and in the corner adjacent to the what we call the mitigation, the wetland mitigation. When they put the road in, they had an Eagle Scout did a mitigation project for wetlands. That whole area is just full of invasives, and it was supposed to be a wildlife viewing area. They planted in the wetland, but then they had a stone wall, and then there was a flat area with another stone wall up above, which was supposed to be like a seating area, and you can't even see any of that anymore. So in that little section is bad. The autumn olive, that was a corner over of the north pasture. If you think of it as a square, but it's not a square, but kitty corner across from where the Ecology Research Meadow is, it's over towards the backside of the summit. There was a few trees there. Well, because we didn't get a handle on them, it's everywhere. The whole road going from, if you're going up from the Ecology Research Garden, and then you take a right on the road towards the pond, you have the north pasture on your left, and the pond area will be on your right. That whole roadway is full of autumn olive, and then throughout the fields and meadows. Also it's under new. There's other invasives there as well. The multiflora rose and honeysuckle are not as bad, but we need to keep our eye on them. And if you scroll down a little bit under new, these are the real problem ones. Bradford Pear came out of the area next to the wetland mitigation area. I think there was one self-seeded tree in there. We didn't get it. The whole north pasture is full. And I'm sure it will be elsewhere. It hasn't started to flower yet, so it's not spreading beyond the one tree that's self-seeding everywhere. We need to get a handle on that. And because we didn't mow the north pasture last year, those little shrubs will get bigger and bigger. Creeping buttercup, that's something we were hoping to get treated this year, and it didn't happen again because of inability to get a contractor there. We need to have a plan of action for that. It's taking over large swaths of area. And it's a new, what they call, in the invasive species world, they have lists that's called something rapid response. So it's like you want to think of Ghostbusters. As soon as you see one, that everyone gets in the truck and runs out to try to eradicate it before it gets a early detection rapid response is the term. EDRR. Cat?
Is it Bradbury Pear or Bradford Pear? The only reason I asked is because I looked up Bradbury Pear and Bradford Pear keeps coming up. I just wanted to understand how to spell it before I saw it.
Yeah, I think it's Bradford. I think Bradbury is did he write horror movies?
Yeah,
or
Ray
something?
Bradbury's a side.
Well, these plants gave me nightmares. So yeah, Bradford Pear.
Thank you.
Previously a famous preferred street tree, which is now invasive everywhere. We planted it all through our suburbs, cul-de-sacs. And all we needed was one tree to get planted at self-seed. We didn't plant it, self-seeded in at Breakneck, and we've got a big problem. Creeping buttercup is early detection, rapid response, identified statewide. They want people to find it and get rid of it before it becomes your next big problem. I think we've missed the opportunity at Breakneck, but we want to come up with a management there. Oh, and last year was the first time I ever saw garlic mustard, but we were able to pull it, and hopefully I'm seeing some come into Ecology, and we've also had some Japanese knotweed. We want to keep our eye open for those. But knapweed is something we had before a little bit. It came in with the cows' hay. It's an agricultural weed, and there's a whole section on the corner of the south pasture where it starts to go, all those probably G over there with the little footbridges going up towards the summit, over in that area and along the path between the lettered fields and the B, C, and D, the grasslands where they meet the meadows. That whole area is full of knapweed. It was very discouraging to see. So those all need to have management plans. The autumn olive is going to require cutting tree. So if we had the contractor came to treat the autumn olive this year, and he said, Freddie, the trees are so big that he'd have to take a boom truck in there and spray into the air. And I said, well, we're not doing that because we always use the least amount of any herbicide and not doing a big wide spray, which that would entail. So what we're going to have to do is have somebody come in and cut the trees. And then right at the time they cut the trees, you paint the stems, the stumps, right? So that it gets absorbed into the roots. Otherwise, you'll just get lots and lots of saplings coming up from that one cut tree. And then the other ones will probably need to be treated in a more backpack spray way that we do other invasives. So that's, go ahead.
How thick are the trunks on these?
Think of the biggest apple tree you ever saw.
Oh, okay. If they were much skinnier, I would say I could go in and at least get a start at it. But yeah, no, that's too big.
And you have and some of those are that you could do maybe, except for we have to coordinate it with you can't do it and then the day later they come to treat. You know, it's a coordination effort and it needs a plan. Oh, and the other thing I will mention, all these invasives, they have different times that it's best to treat them. And
I didn't hear that. What was
different
that?
time. So some you treat better in the spring and others later in the season. It's when they're going to best uptake the herbicide treatment. The next one down, so that's that. The next one is, adding attributes. I just wanted to put something positive in there. Years ago we had, so I didn't even put the big one in. This kind of comes into it though. So we had talked about having a sledding hill area, but right now, it's sort of where the south pasture goes down towards the wetlands was an area that was designed or said to be a great place to do that. We have this other area on the back side of the wetlands going up the hill towards the south pasture. If you're facing the street, first you have the roadside meadow, then you have wetlands, and then you have the hill going up, right?
Mhm.
If you're on the street facing the property, not facing the street. So in between the community gardens and the other trailhead, Wildflower Hill trailhead, right? So that area where it goes up the hill, the back side of the wetlands is a massive invasive problem. When we first, the cows used to be over there. And then when we took over management, we had a restraint from mowing within 20 feet of the wetlands, which prevented us from mowing. Is a great technique for keeping invasives down. So you had like a 20-foot wide stretch of, I think it's a lot of buckthorn, multiflora rose, but a lot of buckthorn, I think. And that there's also the creeping buttercup over there. So anyhow, that area that's another area that needs to be tree cleared and painted and, some heavy duty brush hogging work. We have funding to do that outside of our regular budget with a CPA budget, and we put off doing it till we got, first we needed to have the permit done so we could work in that area, which we do have a permit now from the Conservation Commission that allows us to work there. Then there was a Mass Wildlife Habitat grant. We thought we could get funding of $50,000 that could add to the CPA funding to do a bigger project on the property, but we didn't succeed in getting that. And then with COVID and the lack of contractors being able to come out or, work with them, it's been put off. So we really need to get that done this year. One of the things is that we also don't want to be cutting trees down during breeding bird habitat time. We also prefer to cut trees down in the winter when the soil is solid, but that doesn't always, that's not the best time for using any herbicide treatment to prevent them from resprouting. So we need some better advice on the timing and which do you do, or do you cut them down and then wait till the spring and then treat, which is different than cut and paint. It would mean they'd have to come into leaf. I think we need, when we were keeping up with it, it was easier to just every year see where there was an issue and manage it. And a lot of it we did by mowing. Now it's overwhelming if you see that list. And if you walk through the property, it's a little bit sad from how great it had been and how a few years of getting behind has just let it snowball. So if you go, is there anything else? Well, so I guess that's it. So here's my final, this is the final thing on that list was, I'm asking the committee to, I'm recommending that we agree to hire someone, a consultant to create a plan, a management plan for the property. I've got calls out to a couple. We used to do our own management plan and it was kind of simple. After August 15th, you mow B, C, and D, and then we do other things, but there's so many tasks and so many complexities. I really think we want to go back out. When we first started, we had the Conway School of Landscape Design did a big plan for us. And then afterwards, we hired Jeff Collins, who did consulting on maybe the grassland bird habitat for us. And we had NRCS. So I think it's time, though, we've got enough different complicated and related and not always, how do I say this? Different management techniques for different species aren't always aligned. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering here. So we want to have some better advice on how to manage for all the different wildlife habitats we're managing. Plus, keep in mind, we also are very committed to the public access, right? And having the trails done. But today I'm talking about just the wildlife habitat and ecological benefits of the property. I really think we would benefit. And we used to have a situation where Mass Audubon had this thing called ESS. It was Ecologics, I don't know, something. Jeff Collins worked there. The department sort of isn't there so much anymore, but it might be coming back. And I reached out to someone there and I'm hoping to hear from them. There's also another company in Cambridge that could do it, but I really think we would benefit from having a professional plan that also what we need now is, because we worked with companies that just, we worked with them and they came and did what we wanted. We need to actually now be setting up contracts or putting stuff out to bid or to make it more deliverables, and this is what we expect and when it's going to happen, and have it be a little bit more of a formalized plan for the whole property. And I think the sooner we can do that, I'd like to get some estimates from some of these consultants and then come back in our next meeting, and we should be working on that over the winter. Let them do the work, but we would have to review it and tell them what we want in it and have site visits. And one other thing from that management plan, I'm sorry, I thought I was done, but a couple of years ago, we flagged all the trees. A lot of the apple trees were dead and others were savable. So we had an orchardist who was coming out and pruning some of the apple trees, and we decided which ones needed to come down. Because when they're not in good condition, they spread disease, limbs fall, and then it prevents the mowing from happening and creates an atmosphere where the invasives grow. We had one dead tree that we couldn't get into, and it created I think it was like a school bus size multiflora rose habitat. And so there's many reasons why, but you can't do it when the birds are nesting. Our orchardist had a hip replacement, so he couldn't come for a while, and then he got overly busy. So we either need to see if he can come out again or if we can hire someone else, and then also finish cutting down the trees that are dead and we already identified needed to come out. That's the final thing. So I'm done.
Thank you, Freddie, for that comprehensive look at the management challenges that we're facing. And I have to say that having a plan like that someone takes on and does, that we hire someone to come up with that plan that then does tick through, this is the treatment for this at this time of year, and this is a treatment for that at that time of year. Would help. I just sometimes feel like we're always chasing it and we're never catching it. So if those companies do exist and that we can do something like that, it can ease our workload and know we're getting the best expertise and advice to guide us as we proceed to manage the property.
Yeah, I would just also note that there's two parts to this. One would be having a plan for ongoing management, but the first would be the critical care, and I think we're in that stage right now because I have bad dreams about what's going on there, and it's challenging when I walk there because we're at the edge, and if we don't catch up with some of it soon, we can always come back, but there's not another funding source to do another what we had to deal with before. So and we don't want to, we still have the habitat. That's what's great. I mean, this year I don't want to all be gloom and doom. We had documented 5 or more kestrels, and to see that, which hadn't been there before, that was amazing. And the bobolinks came through again. We don't think they've nested, but at least we're providing habitat for when they're migrating. Our friend Dawn, who takes photographs, she just photographed a flock of the bobolinks coming through on their way out. And they came through on earlier in the spring. So it's not like we're, and certainly our success with the pollinators, we're doing great stuff. So it's not all gloom and doom. And, you know, the huge success, but, you know, it's like you said, Joyce, it's challenging to keep up with everything when you get a little behind.
Right. And I mean, some of it, I don't think will, like, you know, for how many dozens and dozens of years, seed matter from the invasives got into the soil there. So I don't think some of it will never be gone, but we'll be able to manage it better if we get a little ahead of it. And that's where I feel like we need the help to push us there with, and I think that kind of professional management plan that could then guide us on pieces that we carve out to one contract versus another.
Yeah, and also, if you recall, when we first did our first walk there, before there was the Stewardship Committee, the Open Space Preservation Commission held a walk at Breakneck Hill as part of Biodiversity Days we used to have, and I invited Peter Alden, who some of you met at the South Broken Land Foundation's annual meeting, and he was working for the state at the time, and he declared Southborough's Breakneck Hill the worst bittersweet infestation in Metro West. And during that walk, you know, there was the comment about, you know, eradicating, and we're never eradicating, we're managing. And he said, the only way to get rid of all the invasives is if you shoot all the birds.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, you know, people were like, what? And, you know, that's the sense of humor. But, and it's true, because, you know, birds will eat the seeds and then spread them. And we're always going to have them. And as you said, Joyce, some of these seeds live like 10 years or more in the soil.
Yeah. And you
And
know,
we have lots of seeds.
yeah, but hopefully we've added a lot of other kind of seeds now between the Wildflower Hill and the Ecology garden, where the birds are eating them and pooping them someplace else and adding something better. So I know even in my own yard, I had an unidentified plant pop up. I didn't plant it. Turns out it was golden seal, which is a little bit rare in Massachusetts, though it's cultivated for dietary supplements. And when I posted it on a native plant site, people were like, oh, you're so lucky that that just popped up in your yard. You have the birds to thank. So, you know, sometimes we get good things from the birds too.
Yeah, and also what we're doing about flagging plants not to mow.
Yeah.
Those plants are now going to seed and getting larger and larger. So anyhow, so what's the next step? I'd like to ask if I should pursue following up with finding these contractors, and if anyone else knows of one that does this kind of work. I'm pretty much aware of who's out there, but you know, I don't know everything. I have two in mind because there's a big, heavy invasive component here, and I've also seen a plan this company did that's for Belmont somewhere, and they actually do the work, but we want a plan that's not, that we're not like what I think we want, but we can ask what they contribute. We want a plan that lets us have different contractors, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the person who writes the plan, although it could be. So we want it so that we can sort of have a buffet of picking and choosing which project we want to do which year, and have it written out like that. Because I think there's too much to think we're going to get done in 1 year or two.
Yeah.
Although that would be nice. And
It
then we
would-
need ongoing maintenance. So is that all right with everyone, Kat? Do you have any thoughts on that? You looked like you did, maybe.
I look like I'm what?
Did you have a thought on?
Yeah, I think
looking
it's
for-
great. Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If you need any help, let me know.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any of those committees or those companies, but it occurs to me, a childhood friend recently retired from the Interior Department and wildlife management kind of arena, and she well could know people. I don't talk to her very frequently and haven't seen her in a long time, but I don't know. I'll reach out and see if she knows companies that do that kind of thing, because I would imagine in her line of work. I remember once I asked her about botanists and stuff, and it wasn't quite her field, but she might have had a recommendation or two. So I will, I'll see if I can identify any other companies, Freddie.
Okay, I don't know how to say this company. It's like a PATEERE or something. The gentleman who, well, you don't know, there was a recent new company, new couple that's doing native plant grown from seed, and they had a plant sale last weekend in Hudson. And they actually came to our winters, they participated in our winter sow last year, and I've been in touch with them before. He works at that company. So that's the kind of people they hire. It's, you know, they're very knowledgeable about invasives, but I think they're not necessarily who we want to hire if we actually got.
Right. So it's like it's like a company that has expertise and access to experts, but not necessarily a company that is necessarily the licensed herbicide and the heavy equipment and special flail mowers. But it's a company that can figure out what you need and when you need it and write that up.
Yeah, except for this company does have all that other stuff. They do the management. So that's one of the reasons I'm leaning towards them, because they actually know what it's like to be boots on the ground. I just don't think they're committing to hiring them because, you know, they're Cambridge based and they're like maybe a different price bracket than we are. So I think it's worth investigating if you agree.
Yeah.
Certainly Audubon if they come back, if they get back.
Yeah. Yes. Do we need a vote on that for you to continue that?
No, if you tell me to continue, I'll continue, but you'd need you know, I wouldn't hire anyone, of course, without a vote.
That would come back
next meeting. I still want to be, you know, researching if we're not interested in that.
Yeah, no, I think it could be a game changer for us, because I feel like we all only have so many hours in the day, and we have a lot of parts of our lives and things that we want to get done that we're trying to manage. And that includes volunteering on committees, and that includes other things in our lives. And so having something like this that the committee can get from experts, I think just helps us be more efficient. So then we can, you know, instead of researching what's the best treatment for creeping buttercup, you know, we're out having fun, you know, on a volunteer day, planting plugs and stuff like that. So.
Did we forget to record this meeting?
No, it says recording and Melissa started it. It just, that's a random comment from Zoom.
Yeah.
Maybe we used up all our time.
Yeah, well, it's been, I think it's been recording the whole time. So.
Yeah, I see the little recording in the corner. Do you?
And I remember Melissa started it because that's when I did the call to order. But I think also in the next couple of weeks, it'd be nice also to have a site visit when people are around. I know Brett mentioned he's not around for a bit, and I know I'm away for a couple of days, and then I'm away the first week in October. But it's at some point I'll look at the calendar and maybe send out a couple of potential dates. Well, we could maybe still do a late afternoon or something where there's still enough light to do that.
Still light out. Sunset's not till 7:30 next week.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Because I think that'd be nice. Brett, I know you're familiar with the property. It's nice to walk it with the stewards, and we can point out some of the kind of things that we were referencing tonight, like the autumn olive trees, which are very distinctive with their silvery leaf, and things like that. So that would be a wonderful thing to do. So I will do that. Is there any other business before the committee tonight before we adjourn?
Want to see if any of the attendees have anything?
Oh, any
Good.
attendees want to
No
say?
hands have been raised throughout. I've checked multiple times.
Thanks, Kat.
I have nothing else because that was more than enough. That was
Well,
like a 6-month update. So
yeah, we hadn't been able to meet for a while because we had some turnover, so we didn't have quorum. So a lot of updates this time, but hopefully next time, maybe we'll be able to be in person. We'll see what's happening with COVID and where people are, and what they're able to do and what their risk tolerance is for that kind of meeting. But certainly outside, it can feel safer with open air if we did a site visit, a site walk.
And just going to comment on that quickly. And it's at this point somewhat less than about meeting in person for COVID reasons, but there is a convenience factor on occasion. It's easier to do Zoom than travel to a location. And so I'm happy to meet in person, but given my schedule and my commute it's a small commute, but it's a commute still, it's kind of sometimes easier to meet on Zoom. But I will do my best to accommodate the committee's request to be in person.
Thanks, Kat. Okay, so it is now 8:53.
make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Freddie,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye. Yes.
Kat?
Aye, or here, yes.
And I also vote in favor, and so the motion passes and the meeting is adjourned. So we can stop the recording.
Thank you, Kat, for taking the minutes.
Yes,
That's a
thank you.
Huge, big deal.
It is, and I took some notes too, so maybe I'll be able to help if you need help.
Yeah, I've actually, they're done, so I'll circulate them, and I'm sure they're going to be too much, but pare them down the way you want and be done. So
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. And
I'll have to do my homework next time I have some.
and welcome aboard again, Brett. We're so pleased to meet you and have you participate, and look forward to meeting in person at the site visit or our next meeting, or a volunteer day, whichever happens first.
All right. Cool.
All right, I'm going to say goodnight, guys. Thank
Good
you.
night.
good night, everyone.